What is up, everybody? Welcome to Wednesday night. If you are joining us live on Wednesday, go ahead and say hi in the live chat. We would love to connect with you. We are just having such a blast in our Throwback series, #relationship goals. We are just excited to hear from what Pastor Henny has for us today. So grab a pen, grab a notebook, and get settled in. We are going to hear from him right now.
Yes, how do we work through the process? We said, number one, by what? By focusing on our part. Number two, by taking personal responsibility. That's how we focus on our part. And number three, very simply, by dealing with unresolved hurt. And maybe you have to forgive me today, but that's what you got to deal with. You do that in two ways. Here's how you do it. By asking for forgiveness and by offering forgiveness. And throughout the series, we've been talking about the issue of forgiveness that must happen within relationships in order for them to thrive. We need double doses of forgiveness all the time because we are dealing with human beings, not human doings. We're going to mess up, but we got to ask for it. Look at James 5:16. Admit your faults to one another and what? Pray for each other so that you may be what? Healed. Admit to somebody that you're wrong. Let me give you a practical example of this. Let's suppose you have an unbelieving friend or an unbelieving spouse. And I've talked to women who love God and maybe their husbands do not serve God or vice versa. You may need to ask forgiveness for being self-righteous or being pushy. You may be one of those people, you want them to know God so bad that you're putting tracts on their pillow, you're putting tracts in their, in their lunchbox. You're putting tracts in their car when they open it up. Stop that. Just love the person. Demonstrate to them God's grace and God's mercy, especially if they know you. Sometimes we have to be honest. In a good desire, we allow a good desire to become something bad. And maybe you need to go to your spouse and be honest with them or go to your friend and you say, you know what, I've got such a desire for you to know God. I've got such a desire for you to know God the way I know God. And I just want to apologize. I want to apologize if I sounded religious. I want to apologize if I sounded pushy. But I just love God so much and I love you so much. And that's the motivation. So would you please forgive me? 3 words that is powerful in every relationship is I was wrong. You should have clapped, cheered, thrown money, right? I was wrong. It takes a man, a true man and a true woman to admit, hey, I was wrong. I was wrong about that. I was wrong about this. I was wrong with that motive. I was wrong with that response. I was wrong. And some of you had an argument, on the way to church today. You might need to reach over to your spouse and just give them a little squeeze and say, hey, I'm listening to what that loud mouth is saying. Hey, forgive me. The mark of a true Christian is that they are giving and forgiving. You ask for forgiveness, but then you also offer it as well. And there's a lot. You know what amazes me? That people can be in church and have unresolved hurt for so many years. When are you going to deal with your stuff? Come on now, somebody. We have people that are still dealing with issues that should have been dealt with years and years ago, and they're still crying over something that they cannot change. When are you going to overcome? When are you going to move beyond that point? When are you going to get to the place of saying that relationship maybe didn't work out? That relationship, it worked out and I'm in it, but I'm going to be forgiving and I'm going to be loving and I'm going to be kind and I'm going to lay down my life. Let me tell you something. It takes a very high level of maturity to say that when you are not getting what you deserve within a relationship, which is the support, which is the belonging, which is the loving, which is everything you need as an individual. And you're saying, you know what I'm going to rely on? I'm going to rely on the power of the Holy Spirit to empower me so I can love this person the way they need to be loved. They might not even be kind to me. They might not even treat me kind, but I'm not going to cry about something that I cannot change on my own. And I'm not going to let my prayer life be consumed with a hurt that I should have laid down years ago. Paul addresses the church in Corinth and he encourages them to forgive a fellow believer that was involved in gross sin. He's involved in a horrible sin, you know about it. And he says this, look at 2 Corinthians, the 2nd chapter, verses 6 to 8. Listen to what he says. He says, most of you opposed him, and that was punishment enough. Now, however, somebody say now, however. He says, so there was a season, yes, there was conflict, there was stuff. He says, okay, that's fine. You opposed him because of what he did. That's fine. But now, He says things change. Now, however, what does it say? It is time to what? Forgive and comfort him. Otherwise, he may be overcome by discouragement. So I urge you now to reaffirm, listen to the next verse, to reaffirm your what? Love for him. The one thing that must never be in question in any relationship is that we love people. You know, I have kids, you have kids, right? Anybody have kids in the room? Some of you want kids. I'll give you a few of mine. But we all have kids, and we love and adore our kids. But our kids are going to make decisions as they grow. They're going to make decisions. We raise our kids to leave. And my job and Miranda's job as parents is to raise our kids so that they one day can soar into the world and do and fulfill the purpose that God has for them. That's our job as parents. Our job is not to hold on to them. Our job is to release them so that they can become what they need to become. That's our job. And so the one thing that we've always said to our children, we might not always agree with what you're doing. As a matter of fact, we might disagree very vehemently with what you are doing. But the one thing you must never, never doubt about mom and dad, and that is that we will always, always love you. Always. And when it comes to people, no matter what they become, whether we like it, whether we don't like it, whether we agree with it, what we ought to do is love people. And they ought to know, regardless of whether somebody agrees with the way I live my life, that's not going to be relevant for me. For me is I'm always going to love them because that's what relationships are all about. In real life, you have real issues. You have real problems. And we're all real stubborn about real life. Why? Because of that, you're going to have disagreements because you see things differently. That's what life is like. And sometimes we say the wrong things. Sometimes we say hurtful things. So forgiveness has to be a daily decision in a relationship. You have to offer it on a daily basis. If you've decided, hey, I'm not going to forgive them, you are ruining your relationship, period. You need their forgiveness, and they need yours. You've got to deal with unresolved hurt. And can you handle one more? Are you sure about that? Let me give you one more. The last one is by asking for help. By asking for help. The Bible has a couple of verses about the support and strength that we can find. And I want you to look in Proverbs 24, verse 3. Listen to what it says out of the New Century Version. I love it. It says, it takes wisdom to have a good what? It takes what? Now, anybody remember that wisdom we talked about last week, right? It says it takes wisdom, so we know where we can get it. It takes wisdom to have a good family, and it takes what? Understanding to make it strong. Those are the two things that Jesus is the key to the hidden treasure. Gives us what? Wisdom and understanding. Watch. It takes wisdom to have a good family, and it takes understanding to make it strong. Look at this verse, Proverbs 19:20, the first part of the verse. I love this. It says, get all the advice and instruction you can. And then don't go sit on your can. It's what I want to add. This is important because there's a lot of places you can find a lack of support. The truth is our culture tends to work against successful relationships and especially successful marriages. You can find plenty of places, plenty of people who will say to you, you know what, you just need to be happy, just get out. Take the easy road. Don't go through this. You need to be happy. All these phrases that make you feel like, well, maybe I should just get out. And some of you have found people that will support and strengthen that kind of decision. But you need to find some people that will strengthen the decision to stay. It might be a wise friend. It may be a church counselor. It might be a marriage mentor or a relationship mentor. A couple that you can see, that you look at, that have a great marriage, that have a great relationship. There are people in this room that have been married for 25 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 plus years. They are in this room. And they are incredible people, and they are wonderful. They can help you. Let me say this, and now you're going to get mad at me, but I'm going to say it. Some of the worst people you can go to, and I'm specifically talking in marriage, when you're in trouble, is your parents. And here's why. You their little boy, you their little girl, and if you're hurting, they just want you to get out of that hurt. I've seen some of the wisest parents who would give anybody else great advice, give the worst advice to their kids. You go to your parents for comfort. That's fine. But if you need advice to make it probably through, you might need to sit with a loud mouth like me that's going to tell you the way it is, not the way you want it to be. And then how we can make it. Are you with me, somebody? At the Rock Church, we are committed to help you thrive, not just grow. And there are places of encouragement everywhere here. We literally have small groups that you can join. We have places that you can get for support. We have our marriage groups here on Friday nights. Do I have any of the marriage group leaders here? Just wave at me. There's some. So they are here every Friday night to help you along, to building you. We have a class every month. It's called the I Cherish class. Is Dorian and Carol here? There's Dorian and Justice Carol Codrington. Just stand up so people can see how pretty you guys are. Look at them. Aren't they beautiful? And they've been, how many years have you taught I Cherish class? 15 years they've taught I Cherish class. They've taught it here at the Rock for almost 10 years, a decade of teaching people on how to thrive in the relationship. You've got a cop and a judge. Now, he's now a doctor. He's now a counselor. So you got a counselor and a judge. If they can't counsel you, ain't nobody can counsel you. Let me just tell you that. If they can't straighten you out, ain't nobody going to straighten you out. So what I'm saying is there are places of support even within this room. We've got some people that have amazing marriages that have come along and they can help you in it. But you've got to be willing to ask for the help. You've got to lay the pride aside and you've got to say, hey man, I need the help. I need help. I need some support. You know, why would you not go to a class that lasts 45 minutes to 50 minutes for an hour and invest once a month in that? Why won't you go to a group that, you know, they have ribs? And that's just what I heard. They've got ribs. They got chicken. They got potato salad. They got all kinds of, they don't just have fellowship. They have food. They told me, Pastor Henry, you're missing out. I said, man, I'm on a diet. You can't be telling me that stuff. They said, you need to come to the marriage group. I said, yes, I will. Just tell me when you have ribs. I'll be there again. The fact of the matter is that it's a healthy place of encouragement. It's a healthy place where you don't have to hide, where you can get strength and support. And so I think we ought to think about that. I know I've been a little bit tough on you today, but, you know, beating you up a little bit, but that's good for you, right? You know why? Because I care about your relationships. I care about your marriage. I care about your children. I care about your friends. I care about your job. I care about you. And I'm telling you, we must learn as Christians how to work through this process. And I know some of you are at a place where you say, but, you know, Henny, I'm so tired. I'm just tired. You just got to push through to the other side. Look at this verse in Galatians 6, verse 9. Let us not get tired of doing what is right, for after a while, somebody say, after a while. Say it again. After a while, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't get discouraged and give up. Have you ever heard people say, oh, look at those people. They've got such a great friendship. I mean, I know people that have had friendships for 60 plus years. And you say, aren't they lucky? I mean, look at those people. Look at their marriage. They've been married for, 50 years. Aren't they lucky? Can I tell you something? Hear me now. Luck has got nothing to do with it. Nothing. It's got nothing to do with luck. Can I tell you what it has to do with? It's two people who are willing to lay down their lives on a daily basis and say, hey, we're going to do this thing the right way. Great relationships come out of these things that are applied, and here's how it comes: over time. If you are going to improve your relationships, it's not going to happen overnight. If you're going to improve your marriage and you're having marital problems today, let me tell you something, it's not going to happen overnight. You're going to have to work at it. You're going to have to take responsibility. You're going to have to take your side, and you're going to have to work through the process. The truth is this: it'll cost you to have a great relationship. It'll cost you to have a great friendship. It'll cost you to have a great marriage. But it'll cost you much, much more on the flip side as well. So maybe today you say, well, honey, I just don't have the emotional energy. I know sometimes we get there. So you say, how do I get it? Very simply, we pray and we obey. You say, but that's just too simple. But that's what it is. Look at this. Hebrews 12, verse 2 says, we must focus on Jesus, the source and goal of our faith. Look at Philippians 2, verse 1 out of the Phillips translation. God who is at work within you. Say, God's working in me. Now, what is He doing? Look at this. Giving you the what? The will and the power to achieve His purpose. Oh, what is His purpose? That we obey His commandment. What is His commandment? That we love one another by laying down our lives for our friends. So that's the way. So He's saying, hey, listen, I'm at work within you. I'm going to give you the will. That means you want to do it. But I'm also going to give you the power so that you are able to do it. And you might need some help, but let me tell you something. If your friend has Jesus in them and you have Jesus in you, you are going to make it. Why? Because Jesus gets along with Jesus. Can I take a few more minutes? I'm so out of time. Can I take a few more minutes? Somebody just looked at the clock and said, oh, dear. I'm going to do it anyway. If you have to leave, leave your offering. There's boxes and go. It is very important that we understand that the expectations for us as Christ followers is way harder than the world. Are you getting that? You cannot act like the world acts and expect the world to respond in a positive way towards you. You cannot. You cannot demand a politicized answer for a spiritual problem that Jesus has already solved. Now, I'm going to read something to you, and this is in your face, but this is Jesus. And He is going to let you know, because what I talked about all this time is about how we treat friends, how we treat people we married to, and all of that. And then suddenly, somehow in our mind, we flip the script when it comes to people who literally oppose us. But I want to read this to you. Are you ready for this? Look at this. Luke 6, verse 27. I'm going to just read it. Can you guys put it on the overhead? Let's do this. But to you who are willing to listen. Let me stop there. Are you willing to listen? So Jesus knows what He's about to share is going to be very tough. So He says, okay, I'm going to talk to those of you willing to listen. Because there's going to be some of you that's not going to want to do this. But to those of you willing to listen, I say, Jesus said, I say, love your enemies. Love your who? Your enemies. Hear this now. Do good to those who... Jesus uses a hard, harsh term. He says, love your enemy. And then He says, do good to those who what? Not those who just unliked you on Facebook. He says, those who literally oppose you, those who hate you. Those who want nothing to do with you. Those who say, I can't stand you. Bless those who what? Come on now, church. Bless those who what? Woo, okay, Jesus, this is getting deep. Look at this. Pray for those who what? What? No, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I got to love my enemies, yes. I got to do good to those who I don't just have to say, I have to do good to them. That means I have to respond to them in a godly way. But not only that, I have to act towards them in a godly way. I have to bless those who curse me. When they show me that I'm number one on the freeway, I have to bless them. Right? I mean, I'm the number one driver in Southern California. Number one. Because everybody tells me that. So I just tell them, bless you, child. Thank you for acknowledging it. Thank you. I see that finger. I see that finger. I see that finger. Give it to me, baby. Let me know how good I am. I was in Oregon this week, and a lady was literally going over a red light. The light was green for me. And I was not dodging and then go. It was green. She came over a red light. And so I literally had to stop almost in the intersection. She goes by me. We get at the next light. She is cussing me out. She's cussing me out. And I mean rolling her window down, cussing me out. I just smiled at her and I told her, I love you. It literally freaked her out. She took off. It literally freaked her. She almost ran another red light. But that's our job. We are to bless those who what? Curse us. What about those who hurt you? What about those who've done things to you? Jesus said, pray for those who hurt you. And then he goes on that whole cheek slapping thing, which I won't read to you because you can't handle that. And then he says in verse 31, do to others as you would what? Like them to do to you. Now listen, here's the meat now. If you love only those who love you, why should you get credit for that? Even sinners love those who love them. He said, hey, Jesus said, you say you belong to me? There's a higher standard. And not kind of, oh, I'm tolerating. No. Not, oh, I felt like killing them. No. He says that there's a higher standard for you. And let me just say this. There's a higher standard for you as a Christ follower, and then there's even a higher standard for us as Christian leaders. And when we lead anything, when we lead people, whether it be in a small group level, or whether it be on another level, or whether it be from a platform level, or whether when you sing on the front, you have a sense of responsibility as leadership because people see you. You better lead with integrity. And you better know how you respond to people. Jesus said, you gotta know the world responds in this way. You better not be responding in the same way. If you love those who love you, he said, hey, you get no credit. Why? Because every ranked sinner can do exactly the same. If you do good only to those who do good to you, why should you get credit? So Jesus said, hey, this whole tit for tat, you do to me, I do to you. I scratch your back, you scratch mine. We kind of do this thing. He says, even sinners do that much. And then he goes, and this is a bad one. And if you lend money only to those who can repay you, why should you get credit? Even sinners will lend to other sinners for a full return. Woo, it's quiet. By the way, I need some money. I'll be there lending some money there over there. Not really. Now watch this, verse 35. What does he say? Are you ready? Let's read it together. 1, 2, 3. Love your enemies. Do good to them. Lend to them without expecting to be repaid, then your reward from heaven will be very great. And you will truly be, now here's the catch, you'll truly be what? Acting as children of the Most High, for He is kind to those who are unthankful and wicked. You must be compassionate just as your Father is compassionate. But I'm never going to give to those people again because they just unthankful. God says, join the club. I'm never going to give those people. Those people are just wicked. They never appreciate a thing. I'm not giving to them again. God says, hey, that's my daily living. I do it every day. And even when you were wicked, I loved on you. Even when you were without me, I took care of you. Why in the world do we want to judge the world before it's ready to be judged? We ought to be saving agents. We ought to be people that go out into the world and love people and let them know that God cares about them. Not, oh, you sinners are going to get it. You watch, you sinners are going to get it. We know that. So therefore, let's show them there's a better way to live. Because you and I have embraced that way. We've embraced the way of the Father because we know that in our relationships, if they are going to work, that's how they work. Hey, folks, that's the standard. God is saying, that's what I expect of you, and that's how I expect you to treat one another. And then Jesus made the statement in the book of John. He says, by this will all the world know that you are my disciples if you what? Plant more churches. No, if you preach real loud. No, what? If you love one another. Your love for one another is the demonstration of that God is real. Therefore, we got to get our act together and start loving one another instead of criticizing one another, instead of judging one another. We don't qualify. I got a big old beam in my eye. I don't even see the speck in yours. So I'm working on getting rid of my beam, and then I'll come work on your splinter. So here's my challenge to you this week. When you walk out of this room, as a matter of fact, before you walk out of this room, some usher is going to bump you and you're going to get all mad, and then somebody is going to cut you off in the parking lot and they're going to make you turn right, not left, and you have to go left because the preacher went late, and now you got to beat the Baptist to the restaurant, and you made an appointment at 10:30. It's already 10:26. You were sitting there. You're going to run out. You're not even, and then he's going to tell you, sit down for the announcements, and then he's going to receive an offering. And I mean, by that time, can I tell you something? It's a test. If you have an ogre of a boss this week, he's going to be, or she's going to be extra ogre-y. If you have an issue with somebody, guess what? Those issues are going to be multiplied this week. I'm prophesying to you right now. I'm a prophet and you don't even know it. I'm telling you right now, you're going to say something, your wife's going to say something, and down the road you go. And then the Holy Spirit is going to come and He's going to remind you, you see this mouth? Do you hear the words that are coming out of this mouth? He's going to remind you, and He's going to say, hey, do good. Bless and do not curse. Love. Pray for. Encourage. Because in that way, you demonstrate that you belong to me. You say, doesn't that make me like a welcome mat? No, it doesn't. It takes more power to control your emotions than to just let them hang out. The more powerful person is not the person who is ranting and raving and saying everything they want to say. The most powerful person is the one that knows how to control, but knows how to take things to God, not internalizing them and becoming depressed and more angrier. You see, there's two ways of dealing with that. That's either gunny sacking and you getting more angry and more angry, or there's a way of saying, God, I'm releasing this. Listen to me, church. Listen to me, and I'll finish with this. You have to find healthy ways to emotionally release. For me as a pastor, sometimes what I do is I write names on a golf ball. You say, you do that? Yeah, I do. And I don't aim for the fairway. I aim for the woods. Or I aim for the water. And I give the most perfect swing that I can. And I release all of my emotions in a healthy way and just send that ball for baptism. And as I see that ball take off and take flight, I say, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. I bless them. I release it. And then I make sure when I see that person, I make sure when I see that person that I've dealt with the issues that needed to be dealt with, that I'm not holding something against somebody that I should have let go of. Find healthy ways. Healthy ways. Healthy ways. If you need some golf balls, John Benson has a lot.
Wow, what a word from Pastor Henny. I got so much out of it, and I'm sure you did too. We've just been loving our series. And guess what, guys? Next week, Wednesday night, same time, 7 o'clock, we'll be right back here again. But before then, we'll see you for church on Sunday morning at 9 and 11:15 a.m. We just love you so much, and we hope you have a great rest of your week.